Welcome everybody to this debut edition of Royally Mad Sports Talk. I'm your host TJ.
Thomas.
This is Thomas. So this is our first actual YouTube video. We did this for a couple years for SoundCloud, for just podcasts, and we have also done some Facebook Live videos. But we decided we're going to go more towards a YouTube route this year and see if we can get a better following, because we love sports and we love talking about sports, especially the SEC. But guys, so our name was the Play Action Podcast. We changed it to Royally Mad Sports Talk. His last name is Royal, my last name is Maddox. Kind of makes sense to do that. So we will definitely do some weekly shows. We may even get some daily shows in if me or Thomas wants to record something. If something big breaks during the week, we'll definitely have a video up. Also, make sure you follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. The Facebook channel is Royally Mad. I think it's Royally Mad Sports. I'll post a link down below. It's Royally Mad Sports Talk. The Twitter handle is Royally Mad, and 2 D's, MADD. And my Twitter handle is TJMaddox1.
I don't have a Twitter.
And Thomas does not currently have a Twitter yet. And you also, if you'll see at the bottom here, we've actually put the Twitter and all that kind of stuff on the screen for everybody. So let's get into some news, Thomas. 4 teams. They announced yesterday evening that 4 teams could potentially be joining the Big 12. UCF, Cincinnati, BYU, and Houston. This is a big move for the Big 12.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the only way that'll, I guess, revive them, so to speak.
Yeah, that's the only way they're going to keep the conference alive for sure. So I did read that one of the reasons why the Big 12 is doing this is because they want to keep the Big 12 competitive. Yeah. I don't know if... I guess with Cincinnati and UCF, as good as they've been the past few years, that adds some competition. But BYU and Houston's kind of up and down every year. But it does add 4 teams, which gives them the 12 teams they need, because we all know that Texas and Oklahoma has now left, or they haven't officially left, but they are leaving to go to the SEC. Now, will that happen next year or in 2025? We don't know. But what we do know is that the Big 12 has reached out to these teams, and they have offered them a chance to come to the Big 12. Now, from what I read, Cincinnati, if they left right now, they'd have to pay like $10 million to get out of their contract with the American Athletic Conference, as well as UCF. But I'm not sure what Houston or BYU would have to pay to get out of their respective conferences.
Yeah, I don't know. BYU's independent right now, so
exactly. So BYU got out of the Mountain West, I think, a couple years ago.
Yeah, it used to be the Mountain West, but the Mountain West is disbanded, and so now all they have is the WAC.
Yeah, I agree with you. Getting out of the WAC a couple years ago. So BYU, with them being independent, they kind of have the better end of the deal, not having to pay anybody to get out of their conference. And speaking of the Big 12, we mentioned on the show a few minutes ago, and if you've been living under a rock for the past month, y'all know that Oklahoma and Texas have both formally accepted an invitation from the SEC to join. Now, from my understanding is that they have to wait till the existing contract is up in 2025. Now, they can pay to get out of their contract early, but if they did that now, it would be upwards of $40 million per school. So you're looking over $80 million to do that. And if they got out of the Big 12 early, the Big 12 still gets revenue from sales.
Yeah.
So until their contract would have been up, and then those funds would go to the SEC. But Thomas, do you think that this might be a response to the whole alliance that was formed between the ACC, Pac-12, and the Big Ten?
I think a little bit. I think it's really got more to do with just saving their conference. I think that's like above and beyond, like number one. But the other conferences aligning and specifically keeping the Big 12 out of their alliance, I think that bothered the Big 12 too. And so then,
absolutely.
Because if you notice the timing that they announced about adding these 4 teams. So this is big. I took it as big news because last month when they announced that Texas and Oklahoma wanted to join the SEC, I thought the Big 12 was done. I said, well, that's the death of the Big 12 right there. But adding these 4 teams may just be a way to save them. Now, I do think that part of it is response to the alliance, and of course, a response to the SEC. I mean, the SEC is about to become. They already are. But they're about to become the first super conference and the most powerful conference. But like I said, they're already the most powerful conference. But now they're about to become the first super conference with 16 teams. And we'll talk more about that as that develops and how when everything comes to head with that.
Thomas, out of those 4 teams for the Big 12, who do you think is going to make the best impact if they would have joined? Let's say they would have joined next year. Who would make who would have the best impact and the most success up front?
I feel like it'd be Cincinnati.
Yeah.
Out of those 4 teams, I think they're the better of those 4. Luke Fickell's running a real good program out there, so I'd give it to Cincinnati, and then I'd say UCF after that.
Yeah, and then maybe Houston and B1. I don't know. Yeah. They're kind of neck and neck. Houston was good a couple years ago.
Yeah, I mean they've usually. I mean they're say a 8-9 win team.
Yeah,
I mean, they're not bad.
No, they're not bad. And then on top of that, another caveat to what you said is, with these 4 teams joining, it expands their recruiting and their fan base further out. Three more states, because Houston's already in Texas, but Cincinnati, and then to Florida and Utah.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
that gives them a chance to maybe steal from the Pac-12.
Oh, absolutely, it does.
So, and the WAC.
Absolutely, it does. Speaking of UCF, Thomas, did you watch that game last night?
I did.
I watched the majority of it. I fell asleep.
I watched the rest of it after I got off work, but yeah.
I wanted to see how Gus Malzahn did, and I'm not going to lie to you. First half, he looked like the old Auburn coach that was struggling offensively, but the second half, I don't know what he said at Dylan Gabriel, but he came out and was on fire the second half. Awesome. I think he threw for over 300 yards, have like 2 or 3 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. It was a fantastic game, man. I fell asleep at the very end, and I saw that this morning. I saw that UCF had won. So, of course, I had like a 2-hour. It had like a 2-hour rain delay.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily the rain delay; it was the lightning. So
it was lightning.
I think so.
Probably.
That's normally why they delay football games. They can play in the rain. It's the lightning when they have to stop.
Well, unless you're the Big Ten, if it rains, you start crying like a big baby. Did I say that out loud? But anyway, all right, Thomas, let's talk about the SEC. Okay. You and I are both SEC guys. We pull for rival teams, obviously. You're an Alabama fan, me being an Auburn fan. But that being said, there are 4 new coaches.
Okay, I won't hold it against you.
Well, you can't. Your family. So, but there's 4 new coaches this year in the SEC. First-year coaches.
Yep.
Of course, you got Shane Beamer at USC. You got Josh Heupel at Tennessee, Clark Lee at Vanderbilt, and of course Brian Harsin at Auburn. Those are probably 3 out of the 4 pretty decent names. I wouldn't say big names, but they've had some success. Of course, Shane Beamer being son of the legendary coach Frank Beamer, who spent several years at Virginia Tech. Josh Heupel came from UFC, and Brian Harsin came from Boise State. Coincidentally, those 2 teams played last night. Out of those 4 coaches, who do you think is going to have the most success year 1? And what would you consider success?
I would probably say Brian Harsin may actually have the most success because, let's face it, Vandy is Vandy. It's going to be tough. Now, I'm not saying that they won't be good here in a few years. I mean, look what James Franklin did with them for a couple of years. But he got them up to 9 wins.
You probably won't ever have another coach like that at Vandy.
Maybe not.
I hate to say it. I mean, James Franklin is one of a kind.
And I think it may take Shane Beamer a couple of years as well.
Yeah.
And if he's anything like his dad, then he may have South Carolina, here in the next 3 or 4 years, they could be, one of the top 5 SEC teams.
Yeah, I agree.
And then Josh Heupel at Tennessee, he had the big win last night. I mean, no disrespect to Bowling Green, but it was Bowling Green. I mean, let's see how Tennessee does against Florida and Georgia and Alabama. Some of those other big teams that they're going to have to face. I mean, even the rivalry with Kentucky and Vandy.
Yep.
So, let's just see how they go. But I would just say overall Brian Harsin because it's the way that he coaches. It's his mindset. He's got I call it the Nick Saban mindset. In other words, he has total control over his football team. He is not going to let a single player run the football team. You're either going to win the job or you're not, and you're either going to play for his team or you're not, and you're either going to do what he says or you just won't play.
And I'm glad you said that, the Nick Saban mindset, because I've said the same thing, and it's not because I want him to be.
Let me be clear. I'm not saying he's going to be like Saban coaching,
I know what you're saying.
But just the mindset.
Right, and I know what you're saying, and I've said the same thing, and again, I'm not comparing him to Nick Saban.
Yeah.
But he's got that mindset of it's my way or the highway.
Right.
He's not going to take any BS from anybody.
Yeah.
I've seen him. I've seen his interviews. He's fantastic in his interviews.
He doesn't come off to me as well. okay, Bo Nix, your dad play here, so I have to start you. No, you're going to have to earn your starting spot.
Right.
Bo Nix is going to have to earn his way to the starting spot all year long because I think he's going to be competing for most of the year against Finley.
Yeah,
and so I would say probably when it comes to the Penn State game, based on who plays the best in that game from there on, will be the starter.
And I'm glad you said that because I was thinking about this, and we were going to do a SEC preseason preview of every team. Unfortunately, we just ran out of time to do it. Our schedules were not able to come together. And then I was going to do one a couple of nights ago just on Auburn since I was an Auburn fan. One point I was going to touch on was that Bo Nix's daddy played for Auburn. Mm-hmm. So in 2019, he was going to start regardless.
Right.
He had Joey Gatewood as a backup, who I personally think probably would have been a better quarterback that year. And then last year, he had no competition. Mm-hmm. This year, he's got T.J. Finley and he's got Demetrius Davis, a freshman who came in, who was like the top 10 dual threat quarterbacks in the nation. Dude, the kid's for real. So, and Brian Harsin even said himself that T.J. Finley is one play away from being named the starter.
Right.
So we talked about this before the show. I think what's going to happen is, of course, you're not going to tell much out of Akron and Alabama State. We know that.
Mm-hmm. It will give both of them a chance to get plenty of reps in those. It's kind of like a practice game, but it counts.
It's too big. It's basically two practice games before the season starts.
Right.
Because in 2 weeks they go on the road to Happy Valley, and they play Penn State, and that's going to be a massive game.
Especially if it's at night and they do the whiteout.
Oh, it's going to be a whiteout game. They've already said it. Yeah. So, but the thing is, that's going to be Bo Nix's first test as to whether or not he's improved or not. So we're talking about success. If Auburn goes 6-6 this year, like everybody's predicting, so be it. But my biggest thing is I'm looking for improvement from the offensive line. Yeah, if I see improvement from Bo Nix as well as the offensive line, then I'll have more confidence in Brian Harsin. Not that I didn't before, but Harsin and Mike Bobo are known for developing quarterbacks.
The improvement I would like to see from Bo Nix, other than playmaking ability, is leadership and being humble, because last year he had a very sour attitude. It seemed like it came off.
He did, and also if you notice,
and I think a lot of that had to do in 2019. They had the game, the game-winning play against Oregon, and then he beat Alabama his first year, and then I guess he got that. Well, I beat Alabama my freshman year, so so he just walked around, big and bad, and so last year I think he got humbled. Or at least I'm hoping.
I hope so too.
So I would like to see improvements with him attitude-wise.
Yes, and now if you noticed last year, and I noticed this a lot last night with UCF. So maybe it's just the way Malzahn coaches his players.
Yeah.
But Dylan Gabriel would as soon as he takes a snap, he'd start scrambling. He'd do like a rollout or a bootleg. Bo Nix did a lot of that last year.
Yeah.
What I'd like to see out of Bo Nix is taking time in the pocket, finding his receivers, and making the throw.
Yep.
I don't care if the receiver catches it. If you make a good throw and the receiver drops it, that's on the receiver. If you're hitting your targets every play and you're making great throws and the offensive line is giving you time to throw, that's what I'm looking for this year.
Don't scramble unless you absolutely have to. I mean, if you got 3 or 4 guys coming at your face and you ain't got time to throw, then yes, run, do what you can.
Right. Now, if it's a design run, go for it, run. Because Bo can scramble. I give him credit. He's got some legs on him.
Especially if it's like, 2nd 5, 3rd and 5, and that's all you need is 5 yards, and you go get that 5 yards in the slide.
Exactly.
So
Bo can scramble. So I'm like you. I think Shane Beamer's going to be great at South Carolina if he stays there long enough. And I'll tell you, I'll say that. We'll talk about that here in a second. Josh Heupel, Tennessee looked good last night against Bowling Green, but it's Bowling Green. Mm-hmm. We won't really know how good Tennessee is until they start conference play.
Right.
And then their quarterback last night, the transfer from Michigan, I forgot Milton, I think his name is.
Yes, I think it's Joseph Milton or
something
like
that.
Yeah.
I'm surprised he started because when I was going through the notes when we were going to do our team-by-team analysis, I said they should have started Hendon Hooker because he was a dual-threat guy from Virginia Tech transfer.
Yeah.
But I ain't gonna lie to you, man. Milton looked pretty good last night for the time that we got to see him. Now, I didn't watch much of the game because I was more focused on UCF, Boise State, and, of course, the Ohio State-Minnesota game was a nail-biter the first half.
Yeah. Until
the fumble and then that questionable call about the not being a target, which if y'all didn't see it, Minnesota threw the ball, the receiver caught it, and then their defender came in helmet down and hit helmet to helmet, knocked the guy out for a second. My wife was watching it and she was like, "Holy shit, what a hit!" It was a massive hit. And then when they came back and we were watching the replay, I was like, "Oh, there's got to be a targeting." And when they came back saying it wasn't a target, PJ Fleck came unglued. He was not a happy camper, and rightfully so. That's his player first game of the season. There's no sense in that. You're already down by 2 touchdowns. Mm-hmm. Why? I mean, you're trying to make a tackle. I get it.
Yeah.
But if y'all didn't watch it, go back and watch the replay because it was a good game for the first half. We mentioned a second ago about Shane Beamer. Tonight's game is probably already on, and it may even be over by the time this video is posted. But North Carolina takes on Virginia Tech tonight in Blacksburg. This is a big game for Virginia Tech, and I'll tell you why. They have not had a good season the past couple of years, right? Justin Fuentes is kind of on a downhill slope. If Virginia Tech loses 5 or 6 games, they may be looking to replace the head coach. Who do you think that first call is going to be to?
Yeah, but I think they would need to wait 2 or 3 years, see how Shane Beamer is going to do at South Carolina.
Maybe, but in the same sense, I mean,
because you don't want to pull him away, and then he ended up having like a 5-7 year his first season at South Carolina.
I don't see South Carolina going 5-7.
I don't either, but I'm just saying you don't want to pull the trigger too quick on him.
No, I agree. I mean,
just because of his name, I get it, but
South Carolina is going to be. I'm not going to say the most improved team in the East, but they're going to be improved.
Yeah.
The most improved team in the West, I think, is going to be Arkansas. Yep. Arkansas is going to look good this year. They're going to upset a couple teams this year for sure. And before we go into our pick 6, Thomas, let's just do a quick rundown. If you had to pick the standings right now from the West and the East at the end of the season, how do you list the East and how would you list the West?
See, if I go with the East, I'm going to say I'll start with the bottom and go up. All right, so dead last in the East, I'm going with Vandy.
Duh.
Sorry, Vandy.
Sorry, guys.
And then number 6, I guess maybe Tennessee. Number 5 would be South Carolina. Mm-hmm. Number 4, I'm going with Georgia.
What? Okay. Interesting already. You'll get some fans cussing me out tonight.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. Florida.
I was about to say Georgia is number
Georgia. 4? Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry.
Hey,
Florida.
Bulldogs fans, don't knock the camera down. Uncle Lou, if you're watching this, you can cuss us out if you want to. I don't even care, but it's all talk. It's all fun, right?
All right, so who does that leave? What 3?
Kentucky, Florida, and Georgia. And Missouri.
Okay. Yeah, I named Florida at 4, right?
Yes.
Number 3, Missouri. 2, Kentucky. And 1, Georgia.
I agree with you on most of that. I was actually thinking Kentucky as number 2. Here's why.
Because I do believe Kentucky will beat Florida this year, but they won't beat Georgia.
No.
As a matter of fact, I think Georgia may be Kentucky's only loss.
Yeah, I can see that. I agree with you. I was listening to Paul Feinbaum earlier when we went to go get my car out of the shop. And there's a guy that was on there from Kentucky saying that if this is the year Kentucky's going to win the East, it's this year.
Yep.
Now, granted, they're not going to beat Georgia unless JT Daniels gets hurt and half their defense gets hurt.
Now, I will say that I think that even though it's an early season matchup, the game between Kentucky and Missouri will probably determine who finishes second in the East.
It will. I think so too. I would say I'm going to agree with you on most. I'm going to say Vandy 7, Tennessee 6, South Carolina 5. I'm going to say Missouri at 4, and then Florida 3, Kentucky 2, Georgia 1. Only because Florida's got a little bit more talent, I think, than Missouri.
Yeah.
But I think Kentucky's going to end up beating Florida. But see, Florida's been, if you look back at the past few years of Kentucky, Florida's been the Achilles heel of Kentucky. If Florida beats Kentucky, then the rest of the season's kind of. But if Kentucky beats Florida, they finished second. They finished second in the East a couple years ago, behind Georgia.
Right.
I think they went 10-2 that year, the best season they've ever had.
Yeah. All right. So my West.
Alabama number 7.
Number 7, Mississippi State.
Oh, okay.
6, I'm gonna go with.
My wife's cussing me out right now.
So I guess I'll put Arkansas at 6. Even though I think they're going to be improved, I still think they're going to be at the bottom at the West. So 5th, be Auburn.
Out of 9. I'm just kidding.
No, you don't.
No, your family. I hope you walk off the front porch and fall.
I promise that is solely objective. It's not because I'm an Alabama fan.
I know.
It's just because there's so many question marks with them, with their first year head coach and everything.
Yep.
4th, I'm going with, let's see, that leaves Alabama, Texas A&M, LSU, Ole Miss. Okay, 4th, I'm going with LSU. 3rd, Ole Miss. take 2 Texas A&M, and 1 Alabama.
All right, I agree with you on most of those. I think Mississippi State's still going to be the bottom of the barrel this year. It's going to take Mike Leach one more year to get the air raid offense going. Yep. They're going to win some games this year. Yep. In fact, everybody in the West may be bowl eligible by the end of the season.
Right.
I will say that. Yeah. For 6, I know who I want to say at 6, but I'm going to get a lot of criticism if I say that. So I'm going to put Arkansas at 6. 5. Here's where the swerve is going to come. You ready for this? Mm-hmm. So 5, I say, is going to be LSU. 4, I say, is going to be Ole Miss. Auburn's going to be 3rd, A&M 2nd, and Alabama 1. Now, before you get mad, break the computer, leave nasty comments, let me tell you why I say that. I personally think LSU is going to be extremely overrated, even though they have a decent quarterback this year. And last year was a COVID year, so you can't really count that season. But they lost a lot of players. Yeah. Ole Miss was on the brink of beating Alabama last year, on the brink of beating Auburn last year.
If Ole Miss had a defense last year, they'd have won way more games than what they did.
If Ole Miss had a defense last year, they would have beaten Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, bottom line.
Yep.
I mean, they were neck and neck offensively. It was a freaking awesome game watching it.
Yep.
That's why I'm putting Ole Miss at 4. The only reason I say not Ole Miss at 3, and it could be Ole Miss 3, Auburn 4. If Ole Miss beats Auburn this year, then it's going to be Auburn finishing 4th. The reason why I say Auburn 3rd is because every year, and you can go back and look at history, 2004, 2017, 2013, every year people have put Auburn on the back burner and said they're not going to be a team this year, is when they surprise people. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying they're going to go undefeated. I'm not saying they're going to go 11-1. That's not what I'm saying. In fact, what I am saying is there's not going to be an undefeated team in the SEC this year. The competition is so good, especially in the West. The West has really, really stepped up. Because teams are realizing they got to beat Alabama, and Jimbo Fisher's done a good job, yep. And Coach O's done a great job. I don't know how Brian Harson's going to do yet. Lane Kiffin, his 2nd year, is going to surprise some people.
Yep.
But I think we talked about this. I think Auburn is going to beat either LSU or Penn State on the road, and they're going to beat either they're going to beat either Alabama or Georgia at home. Home field advantage for them. The crowd, we're going to have a full crowd this year, especially if Auburn's having a good season. Come time for the Georgia game and the Alabama game, that crowd's going to be loud, and it's going to be difficult to deal with. My biggest concern is Bo Nix. But I still think Auburn's going to end up going like 8-4, maybe 9-3, and if we're lucky, 10-2. Losing to A&M and Alabama or Georgia or LSU or Penn State. But I'm pulling for Penn State tomorrow, because I want them to be undefeated in a couple of weeks. Because then it's really going to let everybody see what Auburn's made of.
You want your opponent to be at their best.
Absolutely, you do.
So
you do. And then
you want all the players to be 100% healthy. You want them to have played the best competition. You want them to come in highly ranked.
Yeah.
So
now I'm not going to be one of those obnoxious fans that said, "Oh, we're going to win the Natty this year." Look, I was watching an Auburn preview video.
If y'all win the Natty this year, I'm running around my neighborhood naked.
I'm going to film that if that happens. Not really. We'll have to edit it for YouTube, but it would still be. I can blur it out.
I mean, I know some people want to see me naked.
But I was watching an Auburn preview video a couple of nights ago, and everybody's saying, even this guy who's a huge Auburn fan, saying 6-6, 7-5 is where they see Auburn. And I'm like, okay, I get where you're coming from, but Auburn's got one of the best linebacker group in the country.
I think a lot of it is just because of the question marks. They don't know how Brian Harsin is going to come. Yeah, he was highly successful at Boise State.
Absolutely.
Okay, but that's the way. This is the SEC. This is the cream of the crop.
Yep.
So let's see how Brian Harsin does in the freaking cream of the crop.
And he's coached under some pretty good coaches with Chris Peterson, and he also coached under Mac Jones.
Yes.
Is it Mac Jones?
Mac Brown.
He coached under Mac Brown in Texas. So he's got that resume that stands out. And if he can develop Bo Nix or TJ Finley,
obviously, I mean, I think we all think they're going to go into the Penn State game 2-0. At least I would hope.
If they lose Alabama State or Akron, it's going to be a long season, guys.
But if they beat Penn State, whether they blow them out or it's a competitive game, whatever, I think that's really going to help him through the rest of the year. That's going to give Auburn a lot of money.
Oh, yeah.
That'll be his first big marquee signature win.
Because you're going to be the underdog.
Especially if you beat them in Penn State at night. Beating Penn State at night, the whiteout, you know their stadium's going to be full capacity,
and Auburn will be
stacked.
like a 10 or 12 point underdog, I think.
Yeah, so Brian Harsin gets that win at Penn State, like that's going to, I think that'll be a good gauge as to where Auburn's going to go for the rest of the year.
Yeah, I agree. Because if they, like you said, if they beat Penn State, they're going to go their next game. I forgot who their next game's against. They have LSU a couple weeks after Penn State, so they're going to have a lot of confidence, a lot of momentum going into that. So I do think that's why I said Auburn third, maybe fourth, but.
Yeah, I mean, if they beat Penn State, then they got Georgia State, so that would put them at 4-0 going into the LSU game.
So y'all can get mad if you want to, guys. Y'all can comment. You can leave negative comments, positive comments. I don't care. Now, that's just how I personally feel.
Let me just say this about Auburn real quick. Okay, after they got Penn State, they get themselves a little breather against Georgia State.
Another scrimmage game.
But then listen to this. This is their stretch that they have. LSU, Georgia, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Texas A&M. 5 straight games.
And now, if y'all notice, so after the Georgia State game, they have a home, away, home, back and forth. If you look at it,
yeah,
that's crazy.
But it's still, still brutal. Those 5 games after Georgia State.
They've got the 4th hardest schedule in the country according to ESPN, and I can see that. So I may be wrong. Auburn may go 6-6, and if they do, hey, cool, so be it. That's what they did. But. I'm going to have a little bit of faith in Brian Harsin to say that he's going to do a lot better job than we think he is.
Yeah.
And they're going to...
I was telling people from the beginning, even Auburn fans, when they found out about Brian Harsin's hiring or whatever, and there was a lot of Auburn fans that were kind of negative about it and stuff like that. But I was never once doubtful. I mean, and you can back me up. I told you, I said, wait and see. I was like, he was highly successful at Boise State, obviously. And we could sit there and say, well, it was just Boise State. Okay, but look at some of the big teams that Boise State beat during his tenure. Okay, so he showed that he can take what we call consider a small school. He showed that he can make his team compete against the big dogs. Yeah. So don't count Brian Harsin out. I was telling the Max Roundtable earlier this season, I said, I have a good feeling about Brian Harsin, which gives me a bad feeling, if you get what I'm saying.
As an Alabama fan, yes.
As an Alabama fan, I have a good feeling about what he's going to do at Auburn, and that gives me a bad feeling.
Right. So let's get into these picks, Thomas. So every week we do what we call the Pick Six. We pick the top 6 games of the week, and we give our predictions. Sometimes we give you a score. Sometimes we'll just we're going to pick basically on if they're going to cover the spread or not. Yeah. This week we're going to pick the straight up winner. Okay. We're not going to pick on the spread this week. Our first game is number 19 Penn State on the road at number 12 Wisconsin. It's an 11 o'clock kickoff tomorrow. I'm really looking forward to that game. Not just because we've got Penn State in a couple of weeks, but that's going to be a brutal matchup. Wisconsin is typically known for their defense. They got a typically good running game. Penn State kind of struggled a little bit last year, but they pulled it together. Yep. So how do you see this game going?
I mean, I think if Wisconsin does what they've always done, running the ball, just passing when they need to and stuff like that. But, Wisconsin's always been known for running the ball all the way back to Ron Dane back in the 90s.
Yeah, one of my favorite running backs.
Yes. And then, of course, Penn State is obviously looking to turn things around from last season, to show that they are the Penn State that everybody has always known them to be. But simply because it's just really, really hard for me to ever pick Penn State. And it's definitely really hard for me to ever pick against Wisconsin. I'm going to go with Wisconsin. I'm picking Wisconsin.
Real quick, Wisconsin is a 5.5 point favorite. ESPN has them a 57.3% chance of winning this game. So Penn State versus Wisconsin. Wisconsin, like we said, great at running the ball, usually a top 10 defense every year. Penn State struggled last year. A couple years ago, they were supposed to be great, and they let us down again. I'd like to see Penn State win this game so they'd be ranked higher, but I don't see it happening. I think Wisconsin's going to win this game too. 5.5 points. That spread's probably about right. It's going to be it'll be a nail biter for sure. Or I say that. We thought the North Carolina was going to destroy Virginia Tech. Of course, only halftime, so that game could change. But as of now, that's how it is. So I'm taking Wisconsin also. So me and Thomas both get Wisconsin. 17th ranked Indiana on the road at the 18th ranked Iowa Hawkeyes. Now this is weird. We don't usually pick Big Ten teams a lot, but this.
No, but And I mean, Indiana had a great year last
year.
They
had a fantastic year. Didn't they make it to the Big 12 or Big 10 championship and lose last night?
I can't remember. But this is the one where their quarterback Michael Penn Jr. he got injured for the rest of the season. So it did put a little damper in their year. But I mean, regardless, they still had a good year. If we're talking, for Indiana, they had a good year.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I'm really high on Indiana this year. I think they're gonna, basically just leap off of last year.
Yeah, I think so too.
And Michael Penix Jr.'s back. He's 100%. He's a dual threat quarterback. So, having quarterbacks that are versatile like that, they're always dangerous to defend. They're extremely difficult to defend against. You can ask Nick Saban. So, and because of that, I'm going to go with Indiana. On the ESPN College Pick'em, they have Iowa at a 74% chance to win. I feel like that's high. And even then, I still went with Indiana, who's the underdog in this one. So
it must have changed, because this morning I looked at it. There's a 58% chance for Iowa to win.
Well, and it could be depending on the site, too. Every site's probably different.
True. Was that ESPN?
Yeah, ESPN gives Iowa a 74% chance.
Yeah, from the last time I looked there, Iowa was a 4-point favorite, but I'm going to Indiana, too, on this game. I think Indiana's been on a roll. I think their passing game is going to step up or continue to improve.
Yeah.
I think Iowa's going to struggle. Even though it's a road game, I think Indiana's going to step in and quiet that crowd early. We got Louisiana.
They're not Lafayette anymore.
Louisiana, who's ranked 23rd at the 21st ranked Texas Longhorns. Texas hasn't been ranked in a while.
Yeah.
Texas is a 9-point favorite in this game with an 87.1% chance of winning. I don't know. I don't know, man.
Billy Napier for Louisiana, heck of a coach.
Very good
I think he's going to end up having a Power 5 head coaching job somewhere
next year.
One day, maybe here in the very near future. And then you've got Steve Sarkeesian, who his first year back at a big school. For some reason, I feel like Steve Sarkeesian is a really good fit for Texas. They struggled for a few years finding the right coach. Charlie Strong wasn't in it, and they thought that Tom Herman was. He turned out to be a bust.
Yes, he did.
I think Sarkeesian and Texas. I think the marriage between them is really, really going to work.
Ain't he from there?
I'm not sure. And he's such an offensive-minded coach. I think Texas will be able to put up a lot of points, not just in this game, but just all throughout the year. So I'm going to go with Texas, but I do believe it's going to be a very close game. I think the 9-point spread. I think it's going to be more like a 6 or 7 point.
Yeah, I don't think Texas.
I think it's going to be a 1-possession game.
I think so too.
Yeah.
Like you, man. Billy Napier has done a fantastic job at Louisiana. He's brought that team from being a nobody to national recognition.
Yep.
Texas, are they back? Are they not back? We don't know. Sarkeesian's there. He's another spawn of Nick Saban, so we'll see. We'll see how well he does. I think Texas probably has the edge in this game, but I think it's going to be about a 4 or 5 point game. I don't see it being a 9-point game. We may be wrong.
Yeah.
But I'm going to go Louisiana here, too. So we haven't disagreed on one yet.
Well, no, I went with Texas.
You went with Texas?
I just said
no,
Louisiana.
I'm going Texas, too. Yeah,
I just said Louisiana will keep it close.
Yeah, I'm going Texas, too. So, man, we haven't disagreed yet. That's okay. Next game is Thomas's favorite team, the 9th-ranked Notre Dame Fighting Irish at Florida State.
Yeah.
Notre Dame is only a 7-point favorite in this game.
Universe, maybe.
Here's the weird thing I don't get about this. They're a 7-point favorite, but they're favored to win by 71%.
Yeah.
That feels like, to me, it should be more like a 10 or 12 point spread.
Yeah. I think Notre Dame is going to take a step back from last year.
I do too.
I don't think they're going to be one of the 4 at the end of the year. Excuse me. I think Florida State will improve. I really want to go with Florida State, but I just don't think that they're quite there yet. And I'm going to give Notre Dame the W in this, but I do think it'll be about 10 to 12 points.
This is where I might have to disagree with you. Notre Dame should win this game, and Notre Dame probably will win this game. But just for the sake of being different, I'm going Florida State.
Okay.
Tomahawk chop is going to be too much for the Fighting Irish. They played in the ACC last year. They're getting the taste of the ACC again this year. Sunday night game in Doak Campbell.
The only college game on that night, so.
And it's the season after Bobby Bowden has passed.
Yep.
This is their first game they play since that's happened, so maybe they're going to look to honor him in a specific way. Beating Notre Dame would be a great way to start. The only reason I see it, but I think that's going to be one of the main reasons why Florida State just somehow upsets Notre Dame.
Yep.
All right, Thomas, your favorite team in the world, the Miami Hurricanes. Just kidding. And number 1 Alabama takes on Miami tomorrow at 2:30 in Atlanta. Don't even know why I have this going here, only because they're two top 25 teams. Alabama's a 19.5 point favorite.
Yeah.
Favored to win by 80.4%.
Well, and there's a lot of people saying that Alabama's going to come slow out the gate, in the second half they're going to run away with it, and that may be. I don't know.
Maybe the case.
They say there's question marks at the quarterback position, and that's just because he played in a few games last year, didn't start. Only had like 200-something passing yards and 1 passing touchdown. But I mean,
well, he was the real deal out of high school when he got recruited.
But and then again, like I said, he only played like Darren Muckle did last year. So, but from what I have learned from Nick Saban coach teams is anytime he loses a star team to the NFL, he just reloads the next year. He's got players that are just as good or maybe even better than the previous team. I'm not concerned how Bryce Young is going to play. I'm really not. Some people are saying he's not even going to have 300 yards passing. I disagree with that. I think he'll have over 300. May not have quite 350, but I think he'll have over 300. I think he'll have at least 3 passing touchdowns. And overall, I think Alabama's going to cover a spread. I think it's going to be 34-14. I think Miami might come out hot in the first half. I mean, I really do. Just with a lot of hype, and they do have a dual threat quarterback, which has always been a kryptonite for Saban. But it's like I heard Tim Tebow say on the Feinbaum show earlier today. Even though Derek King is a dual threat quarterback, and he's just very versatile, he's still going to have to play like the game of his career if he expects Miami to win this game. So.
Oh yeah, absolutely. All right, I'm going to pick. But I'm going to say this. Alabama's going to win the game. We knew that. I don't think they cover the spread. I think it's their first game. Of course, the thing is with Alabama, though, is they lose 20 players a year. They always reload the following year. Saban's has always got people on backup ready to go.
He's got players on the second string that could start anywhere, any other team in the country.
Absolutely. But I think they're going to struggle. Like you said, particularly the first half. They'll bring it together the second half, but I don't think they cover the 19.5. I think it'll be more like a 14, 17-point game. Game of the week. The 5th-ranked Georgia Bulldogs taking on the 3rd-ranked Clemson Tigers in Charlotte tomorrow night. That's the game of the week. Game day is going to be there, obviously. This is a very hard game to pick.
It is.
I'm still torn. While we're recording this video, I have no idea who I'm going to pick. So I may just pull a name out of a hat, to be honest with you. You want to go first, or you want to go?
Yeah, I'll do it. All week I've really been saying Georgia. I even picked them in my college pick'em. Even though they're on the ESPN College Pick'em, they have a 37% chance. I still think that's kind of low, but they have had a lot of injuries leading up to this game. That happened in spring, fall practice, and all that stuff. So that's kind of what makes me concerned about staying with them. I'm not really on the Georgia hype train like a lot of the experts are this year. I still think they'll have a great season. I mean, it's Georgia, it's Kirby Smart. I think they'll have a good year.
My wife loves Georgia.
A lot of people are talking about, they think that JT Daniels is going to have a breakout year based on what they saw from him last year, but he played the last 4 games.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he didn't play a whole season. I think for Georgia to win this game, JT Daniels is going to have at the least, 350 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, 4 passing touchdowns, and anywhere from 0 to 2 interceptions. And even then, I think 2 interceptions against Clemson might be too much. Then on the other side for Clemson, we know a little bit of, everybody's calling him DJU basically because of his long last name, but everybody has a pretty good sample of what he is going to look like because he did play for in place of Trevor Lawrence in a couple games last year. And I think he's going to be very dynamic in this game. I don't think it's going to be a high-scoring game. I think there's probably going to be anywhere from 2 to 5 points that separate them.
Yeah.
Whoever wins. I guess I'm just going to go with Georgia with a slight edge. I say they win by 4.
So I heard this last night. They said that the first team to 24 is going to be the winner. I can see that. JT Daniels, like you said, was injured a lot last year. And even when he wasn't injured, Kirby Smart didn't really play him a lot. And Uncle Lou, he got really pissed off because he was always cussing Kirby Smart out. If you don't know who Uncle Lou is, check him out on YouTube. On the flip side, Clemson has lost a lot of players. But Dabo's like Saban. He's got people on his second string that's probably better than most teams in the country in his first team.
Yep.
That's how he is. That's how he recruits. This game, to me, is more important for Clemson to win than it is for Georgia to win. The reason why I say that is because Clemson's in the ACC. Their schedule's not going to be that great. I mean, they're going to be favored in all their games until they hit the ACC championship, which we thought was going to be against North Carolina, but the way they're playing against Virginia Tech right now, that's wide open. If Georgia loses, they still have to play Florida, who's going to be a top team. They still have to play in the West. So they got Arkansas and Auburn in the West.
And then right after Arkansas, they'll have Auburn.
Yeah.
And then they'll have Kentucky, who I think is going to give them a good contest.
Absolutely.
And then after Kentucky is the Florida game.
Right. And then if Georgia wins out, which they probably will, they'll play Alabama in the SEC game.
As a matter of fact, after Clemson, they play UAB and then they'll play South Carolina and then Vandy. After Vandy, I would still say this is a tough stretch for Georgia. After Vandy, they got Arkansas at home, Auburn in Auburn, Kentucky in Athens, Florida, which is obviously in Jacksonville every year, and then Missouri. So that's a tough 5-game stretch for Georgia.
Yeah.
And then, of course, usual suspects, Tennessee, and then they play Charleston Southern, and then, of course, Georgia Tech at the end of the year. So
if I had to pick right now, I was leaning towards Clemson, but now I'm just really starting to think that Georgia's offense, the whole team really is going to be just a little bit better than Clemson.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But that's our picks for the week, guys. Thank y'all so much for watching. Make sure you check us out on Twitter and on Facebook. It's our names are down here below, so you could click on the links there to get to our Twitter pages and our Facebook page. Make sure you like this video, comment, and please subscribe to it so we can get more viewers and we can send this out to more people and get spread out more throughout the country instead of just here in wonderful Alabama. But thank y'all so much for watching, guys. Again, I'm TJ. This is Thomas. We'll be with you each and every week, at least Friday nights on the videos. We haven't really set a certain time yet. My wife's giving me a look, but she can deal with it. So make sure y'all check us out. We'll have videos posted every week, maybe even every day, just depending on if there's any kind of breaking news or anything big that's happening in college football. So until then, guys, thanks for watching and enjoy football.